Hello, good evening. Happy Friday. Welcome to the Talk of the League podcast on the weekly Armchair Sports Talk YouTube channel. My name is Matt Smith and I'm joined again by Stu Woolley. Stu, how are you, mate?
I'm all right. I'm a lot more relaxed now the season's over. And, there's other things to look forward to, isn't there, than the despair watching Man United get beat or perform badly. But still, somehow managed to get six in the league. So, I can concentrate on playing properly now and kicking about a bit more rather than the despair and pulling my hair out of watching and so it's all good. Hoping the Skies will get battered as well tomorrow night. So looking forward to it.
Kane advised me to be as unbiased as possible towards that game tomorrow. But listen, as an Everton fan and a Man United fan, I don't think that's really going to happen. But listen, this is the end of the season podcast, end of the season chat. Hopefully Tariq will be joining us soon. I think there's a bit of a technical issue there in terms of, hold on, I'm going to send it on to him now. This is what live stuff happens. I'll send it to him there now. Hopefully he comes in with us now. Tariq is a Arsenal fan. He was on the show with us a few weeks ago as well. But this show is all going to be about, we're literally going to run through from the bottom of the league right up to the top of the league. Just have a quick chat about it. The relegation battle, the teams that kind of just faded off into the distance in the middle of the season. The European battle that kind of only really Europa League battle only really consisted of West Ham, Man United, and then it was kind of a case of who fell out of the Champions League spot as well to fill that fifth spot. I think we have Tariq here now, do we? We do. I think he's coming. There we are. How are you, buddy? I think I sent you the wrong link. That was my bad, Tariq. Tariq, welcome. Tariq, this is Stu. Tariq.
How you doing, mate? You all right?
Big up, Stu, man. Nice to meet you. And Matt's just sending me in a completely different room. I think he did on purpose.
You know what? It's been one of those weeks, man. What you missed was Happy Friday, Tariq, and this show is going to be all about basically from the bottom of the league right up the top of the league. We're going to have a chat about what happened all through the season, what teams surprised you, what teams let you down, including the players as well. Then we're going to have a little chat about next season. And then we're going to have to brush over that Mickey Mouse tournament that's on tomorrow evening between Liverpool and Real Madrid as well. I've been asked by the channel owner to be as unbiased as possible for tomorrow. So myself and Stu are going to be Real Madrid and you can be Liverpool, Tariq. Okay? How's that sound?
That's fair enough. That's fine. You're going to be like Peter Reid and Kevin Campbell. Is that the way it is?
Yeah, you see that video? Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. But listen, so let's get stuck into this, the relegation scrap, okay? I think we all kind of assumed that Norwich and Watford were going to be heavily involved, especially Norwich. Maybe Watford might have a chance, depending on how they start the season off. But obviously they sacked a couple of managers throughout the season as well, as per usual. So Norwich and Watford were kind of the first two teams that were relegated. Then it kind of came between Burnley and Everton. And then Leeds kind of fell back into the lap as well. Brentford and the likes of Newcastle, obviously we know what happened with Newcastle. Newcastle got the money injection in January. They climbed themselves out of it. And Brentford obviously signed Christian Eriksen and they climbed themselves out. So it did become a three-horse race really between Everton, Burnley and Leeds. Thankfully, Everton got out of it on the second last day of the season. So we came down to Burnley and Leeds. And inevitably, Burnley, I think they've kind of bit off more than they could chew over the last 4 or 5 seasons. Tariq, I'll come to you first. Any surprises in terms of relegation battle, or do you think the right three went? And who do you think got a little bit lucky as well?
I mean, the right three did go in a like short and simple way. Yeah, I didn't think there was too much surprises there because speaking to my brother-in-law and a lot of football fans in general think that the time for Burnley has ran its course in a way. And Norwich and Watford, they're always very much up and down, how both of them operate in different ways, but usually have similar results in resulting in a relegation and a promotion the following season. But of course, Everton, they were the team that were the surprise in that relegation battle, of course, because, last season at the start with Carlo Ancelotti in that first half, I know it didn't end as well. They was talking about Champions League places, and the creativity, the goals that you have, and how Carlo's got you set up defensively. You thought, you know what? Even with Rafa Benitez, with all the controversy from coming from the red side of Merseyside, and was it going to work out just because of the whole dynamics of it all? I thought at least he had a good base, and Rafa Benitez isn't a bad manager. And yes, James Rodriguez was leaving because he was only at Everton, which we found out for Carlo Ancelotti. We knew that was a big reason, but hey, the Premier League wasn't just enough for him. So yeah, it was interesting to see Everton in there. And yeah, if we're going to be honest, there was a lot of short-term recruitment even last year with the likes of Alan and James Rodriguez, and it was all built to succeed straight away. And that's for next season. Without going in too much, I expect the same for Aston Villa with how they've recruited, and I think they will struggle, all honesty. I know people are talking about them a lot, but Everton, the big surprise. Leeds, second season syndrome. We've seen that quite a few times in the Premier League, so I don't think that one was as much as a surprise. And then, yeah, when you look into context, their injuries, I don't think if they would have had their key players, their spine fit, they'd have been fine. I do. I don't think they would have been, where they were previously, because how it was just that teams were seeming to finding them out, really knowing how to play against Leeds like Manchester United have. But yeah, no, I don't think that there was any surprises in the teams that actually got relegated, but the obvious in Everton.
Yeah, Stu, I'll come to you as well in terms of Burnley getting relegated and Leeds staying up in the final day. But what was interesting to me would have been the managerial changes that Burnley decided to make towards, I think it was 5 or 6 games left to go, maybe 7 games left to go in the season. They got rid of Sean Dyche. They initially did get that manager bounce. In fairness, Mike Jackson did get that manager bounce and clawed themselves even to have any sort of hope as well. And then we had the unknown kind of Jesse Marsh that came in at Leeds. What did you make of that situation? And do you think it was the right call in terms of both clubs sacking Bielsa, bringing in Marsh and sacking Dyche, and kind of having an interim manager there towards in a relegation run-in?
I think I definitely think the Leeds sacking of Bielsa was right. I'm not so sure Jesse Marsh would have been my first choice or anybody's first choice, really, when you consider the calibre of managers on the sidelines at the minute. You might have thought a Benitez may well have come in and steadied the ship. Just as an example, most people were calling for Sam Allardyce, but those days are gone now. That type of manager is gone. You need someone with a bit of guile, someone who's got a bit of artistic nous about them. And Benitez has that. Whatever people say about Benitez, he's an excellent manager. He plays a good brand of football. The problem with Leeds is they always lack football sense. I talk about this a lot, really, because Manchester United lack football sense, but Leeds also lack common sense. And it's a dangerous connection when you lack football sense and common sense, because there are some times in a game of football where there's an old adage, put your foot on it and slow the pace and slow the pace and slow the pace. And you have to do that occasionally. And you have to do that because if you're running at 100 miles an hour, you're running yourselves ragged down a kind of dark tunnel. With no sign of light at the end of it. And if you don't have the players with the skill set to be able to achieve all of this, it's a real problem. And unfortunately, Everton were the same. I hate to say it, but Everton lacked football sense, a common sense. They didn't lack fight. They didn't lack bite, nor did Leeds, nor did Burnley. None of them lack fight or bite. And when we move into the midfield teams, you'll see loads of examples of people that lack that type of thing. And if they just added that spice of football nous just occasionally, then it would have been a far different end to the season. Certainly with Leeds, I'd agree with Tariq. I think injuries were a massive issue for them. There's no two ways about it. And I think Ben Mee was out for the last 3 games as well for Burnley. And that's a massive problem when you've got somebody like Mee and Tarkowski. There's one thing I always talk about in football, and that's a good set of pros. And where Burnley have always survived is they've got a good set of pros with a good work ethic and a good idea of how to play together. You don't have to be the best players on the planet. You just have to understand how each other individual operates and find a way of working together. And Burnley have done that. But you have to kind of say that it was always going to run its course. with Burnley for sure. And with Leeds, I think you're right. I think second season syndrome, it was always going to come into it. So the prize would be Everton. Would I have got rid of Dyche? It's difficult to say, really. When you actually consider what he's achieved on a very, 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 very small budget, they're probably only paying their top players 40 to 50,000 quid a week, which is small money in terms of Premier League football. So to achieve what he's achieved as a manager, to play the type of football, which is my style of football, by the way, because I like a dirty fucker on the pitch. I do. I like them. I like Tarkowski. They take no prisoners whatsoever. If they're going to strangle you, they're going to strangle you, and they'll do it in front of the ref. And I like that about Burnley because, you know, whether you like this ticky-tacky football, this dainty poser type football that a lot of players are today, it's not for me. Now, I described myself before the term legacy fan came in because I'm an old school footballer. You know, I'm 52 years of age. I went to my first game in 77 and I saw what it was like to play football. And you had to learn your trade at a very, very young age. Nowadays, you don't. You know, you get everything handed to you on a plate. And so what I'm getting at in a way is that Burnley never had that. They never had anything handed to them on a plate. They had to physically scratch and push and pull and knock as many walls down as they can to survive in the Premier League. But if you lack investment, which is what Burnley have, it was never going to be sustainable. So I don't actually know whether sacking Dyche was the right move or not, whether he'd have kept him. I think in hindsight, you're right, Jackson changed it slightly. The way that they played, you know, Vigors finally got some kind of momentum going, but it was never going to be enough. Bringing in Vigors to replace Wood was never going to be enough for what Burnley needed. So I would have liked to have seen Dyche see out the end of the season and then, you know, walk away on his own terms. But, you know, Sheffield United did something very, very similar with Chris Wilder, didn't they? You know, and they, you know, removed him, and look what he's now doing at Middlesbrough. So maybe Dyche needs a bit of a break out the game. Maybe go and take up a coaching role somewhere, go and travel Europe and learn new ways of coaching, and then maybe come back to another team. But the surprise for me is Everton. I absolutely. I think Tariq sums it up perfectly. Really, you know, was Lampard the right move for you? Is that a tough one? It's a tough one.
It would all come out in the wash, I think, next season. I think I've been battling back and forth with the Crystal Palace lads in the chat and stuff like that. I think they all hate Lampard and stuff. But listen, I've said it numerous occasions, said it over and over again before. I said Lampard at the time was the pick of a bad bunch, and his main objective was to keep Everton in the league. He realised very quickly after 2 or 3 games that they aren't good enough footballers in order to play the style of football that he wants. So he went back, he resorted to relegation fight football, and it worked in the end. Now, if it is it a case it's going to be a massive clear out in the summer? I think it will be. I can see the teams like Burnley getting stripped of a lot of their players as well. Tarkowski's getting linked with Everton as well. He's on a free contract. Cornet as well. I think his release clause is going to be 17 million because they got relegated. He's a very good player for somebody like an Everton or a middle of the road team we're going to talk about now as well. But I have a comment here as well from CM as well that was kind of agreeing with you, Stu. I think that at the time we thought that the timing of getting rid of Dyche was all wrong. The interims did a good job of getting Burnley in that position, but in the end it was a little too late.
Just on that Burnley thing as well, by the way, I agree with Stu because in terms of how Burnley play, I think something that's kind of gone under the radar, Tarkowski and Ben Mee barely played together because when Ben Mee was playing, Tarkowski was out and then the vice versa happened. And if you're going to try and build a solid, stable base, you need your best centre-backs there. That's where Burnley are at their best, isn't it, when they're defending? And they score plenty from set pieces. So that's another one that's kind of gone under the radar.
Yeah, I think Tarkowski and Ben Mee, I think they collectively they both missed the last 4 to 5 games of the season. Ben Mee was literally an assistant manager with Mike Jackson, and Tarkowski limped off, I think, with 5 games to go, and he never played again. Massive loss for them. Burnley done well in order to get where they were, to be fair to them, because we all had them written off, and I think at one stage Everton had 8 games left, and I was saying to myself, Everton only need to win 2 of the last 8 games to be safe. and they literally went down to the last game of the season. Just another comment here from CM. Thanks for getting all these comments in. He's asked me, what are you expecting Lampard and Everton to do in order to try and stay away from the relegation battle, if possible? I'll skirt over this quickly. I don't want to dig too much into Everton, but I can see Lampard being the type of manager who, not necessarily my way or the highway, but I think he'll kind of say, you're not what I want for this football club. You're not going to play for me in this team. There's the door. And I think he's going to do that to players like Andre Gomez. There's already murmurs that Fabian Delph isn't getting offered an extension. Tom Davies, we've age-old question, is he good enough to be in Everton's midfield? Probably not. He missed the whole of last season with a serious hamstring injury. So that means Everton have gone from having 5 or 6 midfielders to having 2 or 3. So we need to kind of bulk up that midfield. I think we're definitely going to utilise the loan market, because I think we are going to be a little bit financially strong unless we sell DCL. Because people are saying, who do you think Everton are going to sell? They're going to try and sell DCL for the simple reason is that we bought him for 1.5 million. And if we sell him for 50 million, in terms of financial fair play, it's massive, because if we sell Richarlison for 60, we bought him for 50. So it's only a 10 million profit margin there. That's the reason why I think it's going to be DCL. But in terms of Lampard doing something next year, I've said it already that I think if Everton kind of have a solid enough season, kind of similar to what Palace had this year, kind of just kind of let Lampard have his little stamp in it pre-season, get rid of a bit of the deadwood, bring in a bit of youth, utilise the loan market, and kind of finish maybe between 12th and 14th with a bit of progression. I'll take that all day, especially after the season we just had. But listen, we'll box on here into
just a quickie. I just want to add.
Yeah, go on, Stu.
You're absolutely right about utilisation of the loan market. Lampard should have been a bit more wiser than what he was. I understand the Donny van der Beek, although he was injured, but I get the reason why he went for him. I wasn't so sure about Dele Alli. Didn't quite fit with me. He didn't quite understood. But to be fair, he looked quite good for the last couple of games that he was playing. But I think this is where Burnley had their issues. This is where I think Leeds have had their issues. Nobody utilises the loan market anymore. It's there's such a wealth of talents that aren't getting games, that need to be loaned out and need to go and play from all age groups, by the way. We've got a wealth of talent coming through, but there needs to be slight adjustments with the loan market, though. And there needs to be clauses written into contracts that these players, if you are loaning, they must have 10 or 15 games if you're going to take them for a full season. There must be something to do. But I think the loan market, you'll see with the way that Mbappe's ridiculous deal is going to push the transfer figures up again and the salaries up again, clubs have got to start to cut the cloth. Everton appear to have an issue with FFP. I don't know if it's true. I haven't looked into it and I don't want to get into it. But if that is the case, then Lampard's hand's going to be tied. But don't despair, because when you consider when he took over at Chelsea, he had a transfer embargo. He couldn't do anything. And he had a brilliant season. So I wouldn't get too despondent about if he can't utilise the transfer market to how Everton fans would like. But I do agree that he needs a bit of time to mould his squad. We're going to have the same when we talk about Manchester United and Arsenal again. We're going to have very, very similar conversations, all three of us. And it's probably going to be the same type of thing we're going to be talking about each club because we all need the same thing. We all need that type of way to view it. So, look, I'm not saying I'm a fan of Lampard by any stretch of the imagination. But if he has got his hands tied, for whatever reason, you do get a transfer ban. If Burnley and is it Leeds?
Leeds, yeah.
If it's them two and it is upheld and they get a transfer ban, he's done it before. So I wouldn't get too despondent. There's
talks of he's obviously utilised the loan market before and at Derby and stuff like that. And the difference between him having a transfer ban at Chelsea and him having a transfer ban at Everton would be that Chelsea have vastly superior players than what Everton have. That would be the only difference between it. But I do listen. You might sound crazy, but I do think there's a strong possibility that Lampard could go in for someone like Conor Gallagher and get him in for loan. If not on a permanent deal. Listen, Chelsea probably gonna be asked for mad money, so I wouldn't be surprised if they try and maybe bring him in if he's not used by Chelsea next season on maybe a season long loan. there's murmurs of Loftus-Cheek as well. I think his wages are astronomical, so I don't know how that's going to work out as well. And there's a centre half that Bobby, I think, in the chat.
Levy Colwell. Yeah.
Levy Colwell, yeah, he's playing in the Championship playoff final on Saturday as well for Huddersfield. That's another player that, so like Lampard is probably knows these kind of youngsters who are coming up through the ranks of Chelsea. He probably still has contacts. Whether it's going to be the same now under the new ownership of Chelsea, is he going to still have the same kind of contacts? Sure. I'm sure he will. But listen, enough about Lampard, because to be honest with you, I want to forget about this whole season ever happened. And what I'm thinking now is that for this season onward, Everton have just gotten Frank Lampard as their new manager, and Everton have a new dimension going forward. That's what I'm looking at. So listen, obviously, it was, like we say, it was between Everton, Leeds, and Burnley for the last few weeks for the last relegation spot. Then the likes of Southampton, Aston Villa, Brentford, Crystal Palace, Newcastle, Wolves, Brighton. That kind of gang in the middle that were kind of just playing out the middle of the season. 4 or 5 weeks left to go, didn't really have much to play for. Mostly was kind of just, let's see if we can get a top 10 finish. Out of those teams, three, come back to you now. Southampton, Aston Villa, Brentford, Crystal Palace, Newcastle, Wolves, Brighton, and Leicester. Leicester had the European battle as well. Wolves had a great start to the season as well. They kind of fell away. I think they dropped 2 positions on the last day of the season as well, which would have been, like, if you're talking, I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's probably about 12 to 15 million in prize money, if you look at it that way. Then you have Newcastle in the mix there as well. Crystal Palace, who we know a lot about, Tariq, in terms of the Eagle Eye football guys, had a great season. But then you have teams like Aston Villa down in 14th there after the money they spent, Steven Gerrard coming in. Southampton just finished the season kind of just, we're happy to still be in the league next season. They were lucky not to get dragged into as well. What was your opinion on those kind of middle of the road teams this year, Tariq?
I think the latter ones he spoke about in Southampton and Aston Villa, I've kind of got away with it. If you got to remember with Southampton, we'll start off with them first. They had a very good start to the season, a good first half, even up until about January, February. And then it tailed off massively. And the only reason why they stayed out of a relegation battle was because of that win against Arsenal, that 1-0 win. That was huge because that got them to 40 points, and if they would have been on 37, how much were Leeds on? 36? Do you know what I mean? So they'd have easily got dragged into that then. And when you're looking at it for Aston Villa, I know you're going to agree with me on this, Matt. I think they've seriously got away with it this season. If we remember how much football fans in general hyped their transfer window in the summer. I was as an Arsenal fan, Aston Villa, better transfer window than you guys, getting Emi Buendia, who's an Arsenal target, etc., etc. How did that happen? Like it was a horrible season, and when Gerrard took over, they had a new bounce from there. And yes, they had a couple of games, and they'll start to show something. I remember when they beat Crystal Palace away, that was a decent result for them, and they were competing against some decent sides. But then it went through a sticky patch after that too, and Gerrard's calling out players saying they're not working hard enough, which that shouldn't be the case with footballers in the Premier League. And there was a lot of problems within there. And the signings, as I said, it was like Everton's very short term. You sign in 28, 29 Luca Dean. You sign in Callum Chambers, who's 25, 26, 27. Danny Ings. Who else have they got? You're thinking of those sort of players in there who are in and around their peak. Tyrone Mings, I know he's not signed, but he's in his peak years. Emi Martinez, those types of players, and that spine. Yes, now they brought in a Diego Carlos and a Kamara from Marseille. Once again, look good on paper, but we'll see how. And I agree with Stu. Football sometimes isn't about all about just pure quality. It's about how you work together as a team. That's how you're going to get out. So yeah, I think we need to talk about those guys in Southampton and Aston Villa, and I think they kind of got away with it in terms of criticism. And then for the rest of the Midland teams, this is a bit early because I haven't done my reaction to my Premier League video, like my predictions at the start of the season. I put Newcastle in 18th. And I'm sure you guys would have probably done the exact same thing, given the circumstances. The new owners weren't there at the time. Steve Bruce was still there. they had a fantastic season. Eddie Howe up there for manager of the season for me, for what he has done and where he's taken them from.
Well, Tariq, let's have it right with Newcastle. Let's have it right here. If they didn't have that money injection, they were in trouble. They were in trouble. Like,
oh yeah, for sure. Do you know what? Yeah, yes and no in a way, because their signings, a lot of them didn't, like, you know, Chris Wood, he didn't bang like we thought he would. Would. All right.
Hey.
I didn't mean that.
Yeah.
He was injured as well. He picked up an injury very early on.
Bruno
Guimaraes didn't start playing on a regular basis until in the latter end when they were already safe. So they really relied on Matt Targett and Dan Burn.
Exactly right. Yeah.
And Eddie Howe transformed Joe Linton. He improved St. Maximan, made John Joe Shelby look like a decent Premier League midfielder again, and really had like a solid base and made, like, you know, terrible players in Emil Kraft and Jamal Lascelles, who were getting really, really criticised by Newcastle fans, into decent players, in all honesty. So I think Eddie Howe still deserves credit in that way, and it's not all.
Yeah, he does. Well, I think it was probably more the atmosphere change as well, Tariq. I think because it was so like Mike Ashley, Steve Bruce, and then it went from loads of money and Eddie Howe. And I think the players kind of said, right, there might be a future here for me. If I can get a little sneaky new contract, maybe add 20, 30k onto my wages and stuff like that, you know. So still, what do you think in terms of the Newcastle run, and what do you think they're going to do maybe next year as well?
Well, I was delighted with Newcastle's run because I got absolutely lambasted on a show when we removed Ollie Solskjaer, and people were saying, who do you want to come in as interim? And I suggested that we should look at Eddie Howe. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't understand football, blah, 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 blah. And here's the reason. He's not a sexy name, is he? He's not a Cristiano Ronaldo of the management world. But what he is a damn fine manager. And Tariq's absolutely right. Look at what he's done to Joe Linton. Joe Linton was a £40 million waste of space, 6'4", huge mountain of a man, but couldn't do F all. What does Eddie Howe come and do? Well, I'm going to stick you back in midfield, mate. I'm going to play you as a 10, or I'm going to play you as an 8. Unbelievable. Joe Linton's probably thinking, 10 or an 8, what are you at? Just bear with me. This is what I need from you. And all of a sudden, he's transformed his game. The guy can hold the ball up better. He can use the ball better. He only ever sprays it 2, 3, 4 yards, Joe Linton. But then he uses his legs and he'll run another 10 yards, take it back. And he popped up with the odd goal. Now, when you look at, and I know we're going to talk about Manchester United, but I just got to do a bit of a comparison for you here. When you look at Erik ten Hag and what he did to Sebastian Haller. Now, Sebastian Haller at West Ham, forget it. What another Joe Linton type player, waste of space. He's turned him into a Champions League goal scorer. So it's all about the vision of a manager and what he sees in a player, rather than actually what the player sees in himself. I'm a number 9. No, you ain't. You're a 10. No, no, you're not. You're a 10. And here's why you're a 10. And that's exactly what Eddie Howe has done. You can say what you like about Eddie Howe, and you're right about the money, but there was a bit of an issue. There were players that never really got started. You know, Chris Wood was never going to bang in 20 goals, was he? It just wasn't going to happen. The best bit of business for me was Dan Burn. I thought he's been absolutely instrumental in, really solidifying their back line. And everyone knows who knows anything about football. If you've got a good, solid centre-half pairing, a brilliant CDM and a quality keeper behind you, you are very, very tough to beat. Very tough to beat. And Dan Burn came and added something completely different to Newcastle. He on-field coached. He was always shouting, this is where I need you. This is where I want you. Don't go that 10 yards next time because you're going to get caught in behind it. And I cannot come across because I've got X, Y, and Z coming at me. That's what he's doing. There are a multitude of clubs that miss it, mine included. And Arsenal included, unfortunately. I hate to say that, but I've got lots of good things to say about Arsenal, Tariq, so don't worry. But that's what they do. Going back to Villa and Southampton, 100%. Southampton got away with it when they got to 40 points, or whenever it was, or certainly January, February. They've looked at it. We've done enough. There's no way we're going to get into relegation scrap at that point. And in the end, they only finished 2 points ahead of Leeds, by the way. and took their foot off the gas. If I was somebody like James Ward-Prowse or somebody like Fraser Forster, who, by the way, this is another great example of a player that lost his way, and a good manager's been able to bring him back to. I mean, Fraser Forster was one of the best goalkeepers in the second half of the season. He was tremendous, terrific.
Very good.
I remember that game against us.
He's gone to Spurs, hasn't he? Or likely to be going to Spurs, I've heard, as a second choice goalkeeper. I would not have stayed put and play football. The likes of James Ward-Prowse, he must be thinking, what are you doing, guys?
Just sign the new contract. Sign the new contract, like.
But we're here to win football matches. You get in that dressing room. If you don't go out there and want to win, go somewhere else, man. Be somewhere else. I don't want you anywhere near me. On a Monday and a Wednesday when I'm playing, I am such a bad loser. I'm a terrible winner, by the way. I'm an awful winner, but I'm a bad loser. We got beat by 1 goal on Wednesday night, and we're fuming. It was just a kickabout with the lads, and that's just me. These players, they don't have that kind of inner belief and anger anymore. I don't know what the hell's wrong with them. So totally agree about Villa. The only thing I would say, I think Gerrard should really take a look at himself, to be brutally honest, rather than start blaming the players, because you have your first managerial gig in Scotland against Rangers. You've got Celtic, and that's it. When you come down to Premier League, you've got to completely change the way you manage. You've got to change the way you manage Premier League players, and I don't think he's adapted. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. But Newcastle, for me, they're not my surprise team. But I'm glad I was slightly vindicated with Eddie Howe's success.
Can I just add to that as well? Lampard has a better win ratio than Steven Gerrard. Just saying, just saying for that one. Now, Brush is Brush is in the comments here, and I don't know if he's on the gargle tonight. I'm not too sure. But Matt, do you see DCL as a player that's down with the tango, or is he more of a Macarena man? I didn't really know what he meant by that. Right? And then he comes back and says, "It takes 2 to tango, Master. Richarlison might have to help him out." So I'm thinking, is he going to leave on his own, or is he going to stay or something? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Elaborate there, Bruce.
He's a modern day Andy Gray. Andy Gray. He can. His goal, his header, the winning goal when he
against Palace. Yeah.
So it was a fabulous header. It was a brilliant header.
And this is the reason why. I think Brush is on the gargle, because he comes back in with another comment after that and says, "It's all in the pronunciation. Try saying Matthew Smith in a Scouse accent and tell me it ain't sexy." He's definitely on the gargle. But listen, so Tariq, quick word on the 3 teams that kind of finished in the top 10. You have your Leicester there that finished 8th, I believe. Brighton that nicked into 9th spot. Fantastic with the last win of the season. They leapfrogged. They went from 11th to 9th, which is good for them. And then Wolves fell away massively. Quick word on the 3M as well. Obviously, bearing in mind that Leicester had that UEFA conference run as well. So they're probably focusing on that towards the end of the season. But Wolves, for me, really disappointed there. Are Brighton kind of getting false what's the word I'm looking for? Is it a bit of a false position for Brighton, the way they finished the season, kind of out of nowhere, jumping up into 9th, or is it a case that the teams ahead of them kind of fell away? What do you think, Tariq, real quick?
Yes, the teams did fall away ahead of them, like a Wolves, but you're talking to, right? I'm Graham Potter's lover, yeah.
So am I, man. I like Potter. Yeah. I like Potter as well, like so.
I can see Moss in the comments saying that Howe is better than Potter. I don't agree with that. I love Eddie Howe as well. I think he's very good. I agree with Stu. But Graham Potter is different gravy. Like what he's working with that Brighton side and the amount of chances they create without a striker. And, if you're talking about Brighton's players, once again, they're not sexy. They're not, Lewis Dunk at the back. Basuma's the only real player that a top European side or top 6 team in the Premier League would even look at, in all honesty, because then you got Cucurella now. That's another piece of recruitment. He looks like he's going to be moving on to Manchester City. Of course, that's another one. But then you know, your Sanchez is in goal. He still has shaky moments, but he really squeezes it, like using an Arteta phrase, squeezes every bit of that lemon out of these players. And so you've got to give credit to Potter with what he's working with. And he's not just done it in the Premier League. He's shown at Östersund's taking a league team from the second division in Sweden, winning the league into the Europa League against Arsenal, beating us at the Emirates. You know what I mean? So Graham Potter, once again, not a sexy name, not a beautiful looking, you know, man, exotic. He doesn't have the Arteta hairline and that, but he deserves his credit for sure.
Would you have him at Arsenal 3 real quick? Would you? Yeah.
I know that there's quite a few Arsenal fans when I speak to, they're like, I think that's a bit too big of a step. Why is that? Like people are telling me, you know, I've been talking with Man United fans with, you know, like Stu. I'd like to hear your thoughts when we get to Man United. But Eric Ten Hag or Graham Potter, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think there's that much of a difference for what they've achieved in terms of overachieving with what they're doing. Because people want Eric Ten Hag because he's overachieved, but so has Graham Potter, right? And he plays a good brand of football too. So that's my real thoughts on him. And with Wolves, can I just say, and I'll give praise to Leicester first before I get to Wolves. Leicester, I need to hold my hands up because I still don't particularly rate him as much, but I've been one of Brendan Rodgers' biggest haters. I do think that with Leicester, they are a very rich club. They spend a lot of money, but they also make a lot of money back through sales like your Harry Maguire's and whatnot. But they are heavily invested by tied billionaires. You see, which goes under the radar a little bit as well, but he's done a really good job managing this side with a lot of injuries, keeping them into top 8 battle. Serious.
Brush is on a mad thing. I don't know what he's feeling tonight, man. Good man, Brush.
Graham Potter, something like that. Yeah. But yeah, with Leicester, I've got to give credit to Brendan Rodgers. He took carrying them through Europe too, with a lot of weaknesses in their side. I think they are coming into a period of transition now. Jamie Vardy, you know, their midfield, it's not looking as great with Tielemans.
Madison's a bit of an anomaly as well there. Like, does the manager like him? Is he falling out with him?
Man, I think he's had 10 goals, 10 assists.
But he only played half the games or something. It was just really strange, wasn't it?
Yeah, and he's done well there and you know, being the worst team at defending set pieces, getting into that top half, credit there. But Wolves, being in the area, living in Wolverhampton, speaking to my brother-in-law, I'm really worried for them next season because the dynamics in the changing room, there's a lot of rumours about fallings out. The owners aren't really backing the club. They're not, you know, investing in the way that they did previously when they before they even came up. They signed Ruben Neves.
Championship, yeah.
They haven't invested in the summer. They signed nobody. They signed Chiquinho in January. They were meant to sign the likes of Renato Sanchez, Sven Botman last summer. Loads of their deals fell through. So it's not looking good at Wolves at the moment. So they're in a point where they need to transition to. So I think as a little shout for, I know, little preview again for next season, Wolves relegation battle. I think they'll be in it. I'm not saying they will get relegated, but they'll be in and around it.
He's going to struggle, yeah. Is it true now? I heard this. I seen this on Twitter yesterday, Trick. I was going to send it to you. A pre-contract agreement, Paulinho from, was it Sao Paulo? Marquinhos from Sao Paulo over in Brazil signed a pre-contract agreement with Wolves, and then he just threw it in the bin, and he's talking about signing for Arsenal. How's that going on in your family at the moment?
Yeah, thankfully Ed said he doesn't care. He doesn't know because he doesn't know him. So he don't care. That's the reason.
Right, fair enough. Yeah, but, that's grand then. Yeah.
But yeah, he went same old Arsenal always cheating. So
yeah. Right. Let's have a quick word on West Ham before we get stuck into your two teams. West Ham. Had a good season. In fairness, they were kind of, again, was it a case where they were kind of benefiting at the start of the season that Spurs and United were kind of having a bad season? Was it kind of that kind of case? And then did they kind of finish up in their true position in 7th? I still to this day don't know how Man United finished ahead of them. I don't know, but a word on West Ham as well. David Moyes as well. One of my shouts for manager of the season that we're going to talk about as well in a while. Going deep into the Europa League as well. So, listen, Stu, we'll come to you on that one. We'll try and gloss over this quickly because I think we're going to get stuck into your two teams now, have a bit of a chat then. But a quick word on West Ham and their season, and obviously Mark Noble as well, finishing up with West Ham.
Look, it's good to see David Moyes kind of reinvent himself for a start. He was great for Everton. He was poor for us, and then had a real problem finding his feet and finding his confidence. But it's good to see him, doing well again, so to speak. In terms of West Ham, I think they did. They finished in the right position. Their squad depth wasn't ever going to be big enough to compete on 2 or 3 or 4 fronts. And so we had to make a decision. Do we want European football again? And if so, we'll just take Europa League or Europa Conference, or do we go ahead and try and win the cup? I think they actually went to try and win the cup. I think that's what we chose. And it's by hook or by crook, they managed to finish 7th. The problem with the whole of the Premier League is it's been a poor season for 90% of the teams, apart from Liverpool and City. Everyone else has allowed Liverpool and City to look way better than what they are. I know Liverpool fans will say that's bollocks and City fans will say that's bollocks, but you actually start looking at football as football and take your club eyes away, you'll see that, as good as City and Liverpool have been, there isn't that gulf in class. There just isn't. It requires teams to put that extra 5 or 7% worth of effort in per game, and you'll get a lot closer to them. And I think West Ham managed to do that for the calibre of squad they've got. And I think that's the importance. It's the calibre of the squad. And David Moyes is, again, he's not a flash kind of guy. Declan Rice is not a flash player. Soucek, he's not a flash player. Jared Bowen, he's not a flash player. Jared Bowen can't believe he's pulling on a Premier League football shirt every day. That's what you need. That's what you need. And look where he's elevated himself to, the England squad. And that's by hard work. That is. He's not a fashionable player by any stretch of imagination. West Ham, England squad, not since the likes of Bobby Moore have you seen that. Jesse Lingard made a big mistake by not signing for West Ham. From us, he should have made that transition. I think Cresswell is decent at left back. Forget what's happening with Zuma off the pitch, but on the pitch, he's been a leader for them. And then you got Mark Noble. Mark Noble is your typical Matt Letizia, Ryan Giggs one club man. I think it was always catching up with him. What I liked about Noble is he was underrated. Only because people don't like players that aren't, willing to beat 3 or 4. He'll get the ball and he'll drop it 2 yards, and that's it. And then he'll get it back, and he'll drop it another 2 yards. He'll put a crunching tackle in. He'll win a bit of a header. Brilliant CDM player, because that's what you need from a CDM player. He won't go chasing the ball. He won't go chasing you unless he has to. So he's just absolutely was perfect for them. He was a brilliant linchpin. What better player, really, for Declan Rice to learn that particular position from? Now, most people will say, there's miles better out there. Actually, there isn't. Look at what Fabinho does for Liverpool. He does exactly the same as what Mark Noble does. All right, he might travel forward on the odd occasion, but ultimately he just mops up at the back. And if he's got to drop in at centre half, he'll drop in at centre half. If he's got to play slightly to the left, he'll do it. If he's got to play slightly to the right, he'll do it. But ultimately, Jordan Henderson, very, very similar, except he plays a bit higher up. You've got to look at certain players that fit into certain systems and fit into certain squads. It's called squad balance. We've spoken about this before, Matt. It's all about squad balance. And those that West Ham had that squad balance. So look at Fabianski. I mean, he's had a brilliant season. 4 seasons ago, people were saying he's finished, doesn't know what he's doing, etc., etc., etc. He's played his way back into form. And when we talk about my club, that's all you can ask for a footballer: play your own way back into form, because I can't do it for you. And these guys have done it. So great to see West Ham, and I'm really pleased. But I think it's right. Just quick on Wolves. I think Tariq's right. But I would look at it and probably ping it down to individuals. I think there's too many individuals in there who love the limelight. Moutinho has forgotten how to play with Neves, that type of thing, which is ridiculous. Den Donker's forgotten how to play, period. He was fantastic at Anderlecht. He was a brilliant player. I'd have loved him at United when he was at Anderlecht. And then I think
it might be a case that a couple of the Wolves players are realising that Wolves are probably a mid-table team and maybe kind of looking that their heads have turned a little bit. Like
Yeah,
Neves is getting linked with certain teams and stuff, so maybe that's it. Just a comment there. I want Tariq to just kind of brush over this one before we get on to your two teams. Brush through this one in. I think it is interesting. Tariq, your thoughts on that one? Bowen, Rice, can they keep hold of them? Just real quick before we get stuck into your teams.
Rice, yes, because of the contract. Bowen, also yes, because English tax is going to put off a lot of teams.
Yeah.
Do you agree, Stu?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I had to ask you that when you was having a drink.
You're absolutely right. You're going for Rice. You're looking at 100, 120 million quid. Complete waste of money at this point in time. Great player, but you've really got to look at the value of it. I don't see anyone taking a punt on Jarrod Bowen. Actually, I don't. I
can see Liverpool coming in if Salah leaves.
No,
and I can see that. That's the only way I can see him going. And I think West Ham are going to try and charge 50, 60 million for him as well.
Do you know the best place for him? You're going to laugh at me here. Everton.
I'd love him at Everton, but
he would be brilliant for you. He would.
I know.
He's a Lampard type of striker. The thing about Richarlison is, I think he's quite a greedy player. Bowen isn't. Bowen's a team player.
But he's not gonna go from West Ham to Everton after getting an England call up. Let's be honest, like.
Well, look, stranger things have happened. He won't. But what I'm saying is, he's not going to be able to. I don't think he can go higher than where he is at West Ham. The only team I think could take a punt on him is probably Tottenham.
Good shot. But gave Kulusevski there now. They're signing him permanently as well, aren't they? So, listen, let's get stuck in. Let's have a laugh here, right? Man United, what a year, what a season, huh? One of the best seasons I've ever seen. Let's kind of dissect this. I think it's probably been one of the worst seasons. Obviously, like you say, you've seen probably a lot of Manchester United teams over the years. You've lived through the best and probably what Sir Alex Ferguson did and all that. Does this rate as one of, not in terms of league finish. Listen, the league finish is probably like sixth place finish, Europa League. I think myself personally, I think Man United are Europa League level at the moment. Okay, is it possibly one of the worst squads in terms of Manchester United players you've ever seen?
Well, bearing in mind, I lived through the Dave Sexton era and the Ron Atkinson era. So,
bear in mind, me and Tariq are only 30 and younger, so try and bear with us as well. Like.
Okay. You have to look at it from the Sir Alex Ferguson era. The problem is our balance it was all wrong. The way that we were playing throughout the season for the last couple of years was all wrong. Where we were successful when we finished second and third, mainly third actually, pre-pandemic, we attacked the diagonals brilliantly. And that'd be Rashford and Martial. So if you remember, when we got Rashford and Martial playing out on the wing, we attacked the diagonals brilliantly. The reason we attacked the diagonals and we were getting so many penalties was because we were committing players. We were committing the opposition and we were having them backtracked. A fullback hates to be backpedaling all the time. And that's what Rashford and that's what Martial were doing to fullbacks. We stopped doing it. If you can tell me the last time we did that, nobody can, because we get to the edge of the box and then we dilly-dally, we forget. You've got to get into the edge of the box, you've got to commit. You have to commit all the time. Now, if ever I was playing fullback, I wouldn't let him have the diagonal. I'd want him outside. And the reason I want him outside is because I'm either going to block the cross, and then if I don't block the cross, you're hoping the centre halves will do it. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, and I'm going to go over old ground here, and any United fans in the channel will know we've been crying out for CDM. And there's no way, absolutely no way, that McTominay and Fred double pivot, and I hate that phrase. I absolutely can't abide that phrase. It doesn't mean anything, was ever going to work, because Fred is a box-to-box player. He plays like that for Brazil, and so does McTominay. So I always said, and I'm on record about this, I wanted a holding midfielder. I'd have played Mata and I'd have played Bruno. So I'd have played Bruno as an 8 and Mata in there. Now, the latter stages of the season, Mata came in and became instrumental and pivotal of the way that we played, because what he is, he dictates the tempo. And then once you've done that, you can play a nice front three, 2 wide players, a single head player, but you can cross the 2 wides over. And then when we are out of possession, you can make it a 5 in the middle. And that's how footballers or decent football clubs should play. You make yourself very, very difficult to beat. A lot of the fans are going in against Maguire. Look, I could be here all night, by the way. And just so you know, A lot of fans are going in against Maguire. Again, you've got to understand the centre-half position to be able to go in on the centre-half. If you don't get it, it's very difficult for you to understand it. And you've got to understand that De Gea, when you've got a goalkeeper who's a brilliant shot stopper, by the way, that's glued to his 6-yard line, the travelling distance behind you for a forward is usually 10 to 15 yards. And that's a lot if you're not a quick centre-half. If De Gea comes out to the penalty area, it's a good 6 yards. And then it's easy for you to deal with, So these are simple things that you've got to understand being a centre half. The other thing is, because we didn't have a proper central defensive midfielder, you've got travelling distance between our midfield again. So it enables a 10 to get in either in front of Maguire or behind Maguire. And there's always space in between. The other thing is our fullbacks are woefully out of... Sorry, again, I could go on forever. Apologise. We're always out of position. Always out of position. They're either 10 yards too high, or when they are in the correct position, they're allowing the opposition fullbacks and the opposition wide players to come in because Rashford and Sancho can't be bothered to drop in 15, 20 yards to help cover. So there's a multitude of reasons why we weren't good. And this goes back to what I was saying in my opening statement, football sense. Football sense. And this is what I don't get. And this is what I can't understand. People always talk to me about, he needs coaching, he needs coaching. What do you think a professional footballer who's played the game for 10 years needs coaching? He doesn't. They need drilling. There's a difference between drilling a player and coaching a player. It's massive. It's huge. What we lacked was drills. We didn't have any. He's talking about football IQ. Yeah, he's absolutely right. One other thing about tactical setup, and I will wrap up here. Sorry, Lines, is it's up to the players as well, by the way. It's not, they don't have to look at the manager and the bench and say, what do I do? You've got a pair of eyes, you've got a pair of ears. It's up to you to be able to see what's going on. When I was playing, I would spend 10 minutes of every game looking at what they were doing. Who's their go-to player from the fullback? Is it the midfielder? Is it the winger? Is it the centre half? Is the striker better in the air? Is he better with his chest? Does he take it with his left foot? Does he take it with his right foot? Does he back into me? Does he arch? Does he give me 2 yards? Can I, knock him off? Does he try and knock me off when we're going up for a header? All little things like that are not rocket science, gentlemen. It's dead easy. And you can do that in any position that you play. And that's how I used to play football. And that's how I used to look at it. And it enables you then to talk to people in front of you. And Maguire should be speaking to a good, solid CDM and saying, I need you here. Back off those 10 yards when we're out of possession. Drag in Mata, drag in Bruno, get them tight to you, and then pull Sancho and pull Rashford back. Stop them and give them a brick wall to go into, and things of that nature. Like I say, fellas, I could go on for ages.
I'll ask you one more question on Man United, right? I'll ask you one more question on Man before we move on to Arsenal, because I want to let Arsenal have our three Cavi's word on Arsenal, and I'm going to kill two birds with one stone with Tariq, Arsenal and Tottenham. I'm gonna deal with you, Tariq. I'm gonna get you to talk about Spurs as well. But listen, I wouldn't. I'd be doing this channel a disservice without asking you, what does Ten Hag coming in, and what does he need to do with this squad?
Well, look, most fans will say we've got to get rid of 12 players. It's not going to happen because you're not going to. If you get rid of 12 players, you can only bring 3 or 4 players in. You're going to have a real problem with your overall squad balance. You can bring as many in as you need, but it's a bit of an issue. You'll never be able to get 4 or 5 youth players to come in and do the business. Ten Hag needs to look and work with the bulk of our squad, but he needs to bring up the additions. A good squad, you need great footballers, not super high talented footballers, just good solid footballers, and you sprinkle it with stardust. That's what we need. So we need a CDM. We need a couple of fullbacks, in my humble opinion, a striker, because I think Ronaldo will have to play more on the bench than normal, but he'll still get us 18 goals a season. If you bring in a striker that brings you 20 goals in a season, then you're okay. Yeah, but it's really a CDM. But we need, whoever we bring in, they've got to be leaders and they've got to be coaches. They've got to be on-field coaches and on-field leaders. All right. I don't want to hear anything about captains because I don't agree with it. I never used to listen to my skipper, never paid any attention to him because I was too busy concentrating on my own game. Outside the box, I would say we need to change our goalkeeper as well.
Right, I'll let CM here have the final word on the United talk. CM, big Man United fan, so fair play. The basics of being professional is understanding your teammates, opponents, and your individual role in every single match. That is part of devoting your life to the game, dedication to your craft. Fair play, CM. And thanks to everybody throwing comments in. We're very busy with the comments today as well. Moss in there, 11 Hag is super. Fair play, Moss. Let's get stuck into Arsenal. Tariq, give us your thoughts and your emotions on Arsenal, because I've had this conversation with you the last time you were on the channel as well, in terms of are you disappointed? Are you happy with the fifth place finish? I think the league wasn't over when I was talking to you before. So now that the league is over, dust has settled. Can you be angry with the fact that Arsenal have improved and finished fifth? Or is it a case that you're disappointed because it was in your hands at one case and you did kind of let it slip?
Look, the disappointment is there because we were essentially one win away against in that Spurs game. Before we entered that, we were 4 points ahead of them. And if we won that game, we guaranteed top four. That one, really, it was a must not lose, but this how it played out. We lost that game, still in our hands going into Newcastle. Difficult away fixture, but once again, you don't have to play well, you just have to win.
Rush sound as usual, dig in there too.
Yeah, of course. I've been hearing it. So yes, disappointment is certainly there. But I'm going to be honest, this is a different type of feeling that I've felt. There's a lot. The overriding feeling is positive in that way because I've seen a lot of progression. And it was very interesting listening to Stu then, because this is what that I felt that just a year ago and 2 years ago, when you're talking about squad balance, it's all well and good having certain individuals that can, win you a game, but you're not going to play well. You're not going to function as a team without balance, without even things like team cohesion, or the dynamics of the squad in that way. And this is where I'll give massive credit to Arteta. And I honestly, I feel like Stu, you're a clever you're a football man. Matt, I know you are too. And just listening to no, I'm not putting an asterisk there. This is the first time meeting Stu.
Just because I'm here, like whatever, yeah.
yeah. I'm gonna add you in there too.
Yeah.
It's because I've just met Stu for the first time.
Yeah.
So listening to him talk, like in terms of the tactical sides, even the deeper football understanding, I really like. It's a pleasure to meet you, Stu. And with Arteta, he has made our game simple in a way for the individual players. He's made it simple, but there's a lot of hard work and very, very much as Stu said, drilling into the training ground. And with the age of our players and the lack of experience, he's also been a coach as well as a manager of the club, managing decisions from what song is playing. That North London Forever song that some fans may or may not like. He was a part of that decision to bring it in early because he wants to generate an atmosphere. All of the decisions in and out of the club, from contracts, he's a part of it, recruitment, and even to getting drones on the training pitch. This is where you have to understand this guy's taking on a lot of responsibility for the club, and we have improved massively in terms of the off the field things. Whereas, on the pitch, there's still things. I think we will, in words of Arteta, it will go bang at some point if we make the right summer signings. If we just sprinkle, as Stu was saying, that little bit of stardust now, a forward. Not necessarily a striker with the modern day, but someone who's a chief goal scorer. Also bringing in that little bit of creativity to support the likes of Erdegaard in midfield. For me, my biggest concern was this season was the C word, control. That's what I think football's all about for the top teams. If you can control a game in midfield, in and out of possession, you will be a good side and you will win trophies because you'll set yourself up for that. Controlling off the ball is how you press. And it's not even necessarily have to do the Liverpool, crazy rock and roll press. It's just about managing teams in certain situations of the pitch. Say Man United, for example, like when I don't know. I'm not saying this is the case, but say, Sancho, he's the danger man, but Alanga's not so much. So let's work the ball out there, and he'll have to do something special to try and break us down. Those types of things, or if Wan-Bissaka's playing, give him all the time. Do you know what I mean? You get what I'm saying? And that's what Arteta really has done. And I haven't seen that at Arsenal, and haven't seen that for a while. So the fact that we were in a top 4 race without the spine. Spine in football, once again, it doesn't necessarily mean your positions where these players are playing. Your goalkeeper, that's one that's really in position. Your defense as a whole, because just like the analogy goes, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. That's it. Because if you have an area in defense that is very weak, which we have seen when Tavares has come in particular, not really Cedric. When Cedric was playing, he's our weakest out of the Tierney, Gabriel, and Benjamin White. But he wasn't that very much weaker where he was getting exposed on a weekly basis. Whereas Tavares and Cedric, not the right balance. Take out that Thomas Partey midfield, extremely weak in transition and controlling the ball. So I'm very happy to see where Arteta is taking us forward, but now the next steps have to be implemented. It's all well and good, Moss and myself and other Arsenal fans talking about, this has been a very much in progress. That will only be determined by what we do next season. We can't really, it's hard because you can't really judge this season as an Arsenal fan until you see what happens next. If we don't kick on, then this season was not progress. But if we kick on and, I think we need to qualify for the Champions League next season. That's whether finishing top 4 or winning the Europa League. That's what I need to see. Jesus, we've been linked with some good names early on in the window. And that's the areas that we need in this squad. As I said, the creativity to help your Odegaards, the goal scoring to help your Martinellis, your Sakas, your Eddie Nketiahs. And I think also, once again, I don't think that's a bad signing up on a contract. I know there's a lot of Arsenal fans who think otherwise. What, 100k, etc.? As an academy player, you've not had to pay a single penny for. The 100k is only if he sees out his 5 years, because there's certain signing on bonuses. So it could work around. This is just knowing a football agent myself, how they told me how they structure these deals. If he sees out his full contract, it will be in the range of 100k, but he's probably on 70k a week with bonuses after each season and stuff.
So if he scores his goals and meets the appearances, exactly, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's not a bad deal for Arsenal in that way.
Just a comment there from Brush there. I have to give it credit to Ramsdale. I, like many others, laughed at the deal and questioned the price, but he's done very well. I actually watched the Ramsdale interview when he was on the Peter Crouch podcast. It's actually very good. And I just want to touch on what you were saying there, Tariq. Give credit to Arteta bringing the drones and stuff like that in. Ramsdale was talking on that podcast about the development of keepers lately in the modern game. They're literally nearly becoming a third centre back or a fourth centre back when it comes to when they have the ball. Like, they nearly want the keeper to move out of the edge of the box past the 18-yard box and become that option for a pass.
Exactly.
And then he said, well, if you lose the ball, your backline lose the ball, then you're in trouble. But he said it's Arteta is the one who's drilling that in and wants Ramsdale to become that extra man in the outfield. So it's interesting. And he was saying, like, as well, like, Ramsdale said, Arteta's making me a better footballer with my feet. I'm becoming an outfield player nearly, because I need to be able to control the ball and ping it 20 yards if I need it. And that's credit to Arteta as well.
And another thing is, I'm guessing this is what Stu was insinuating in saying a new goalkeeper. He's very good at coming off his line and helping that defense. When we're playing a high line, that ball goes over the top. No striker can get onto it because he's there. You have to read the game in a way like an outfield player. But playing at centre-back position myself, that was my biggest strength personally, because I wasn't the quickest. I was quite strong, but, when you're coming up against strikers that are quicker than you, you have to know that one step ahead. And for Ramsdale, he'll have to be in a position as like an outfield player. Okay, that midfielder's got no pressure on that ball right now. you can see that striker making that run, trying to peel off. I'm already got a goal. I can't react when that ball's been coming because that striker will nick it ahead of me and I'll be red card sent off. Ramsdale's been excellent at that, even throughout this second half of the season where he's been poor in his distribution. And I think this is just hypothesis. Yeah, I think it's due to a hamstring injury that he picked up before Villa, why we saw Leno come in. And he's not really got that shaking that off. But coming off his line, he's still been excellent. Like in that Chelsea game, he made a few last-ditch interceptions. So yeah, good point there, saying about Arteta's improved him as like an outfield player, and that's one of the ways in reading the game.
Right, let's get stuck in. What we're going to gloss over this top four. T, I'll let you have the word on Spurs because I know it's going to hurt you trying to give them a bit of a compliment, but you have to give it to them. You have to give it to them. They really turned it on in the last. I wouldn't even say. I think they had a kind of stop-start season probably up to around maybe late February, early March, and then they turned on the afterburners. I think anyway. So we've seen the best of Son and Kane. Son coming out of nowhere, getting the Golden Boot as well towards the end of the season on the last day, in fact. So listen, let's have. I'll just say keep it short on your compliments on Spurs. Then we'll get stuck into the last three.
Moss, Bobby, other Arsenal fans, this is where you can leave now. But in all seriousness, yeah, massive credit to Spurs and Conte for squeezing every little bit of that lemon as well out of that side, putting in them once again simplifying the game for them in a way where he knows their weaknesses. He plays that three at the back with their wing backs, getting the support going forward as well, and getting the best out of the Harry Kane and Son. That's what he's done. There's still massive gaping holes in there. And if Spurs are going to kick on, they need to improve. But adding this January signings, they're the reason why they are there. In Bentancur and Kulusevski, adding in a ball progressor into that midfield that can not just progress the ball through passing, driving, dribbling, playing forward passes too into your likes of your Kanes, Kulusevskis, your Sons. And Kulusevski has added an inside forward in that right wing position, like a Son, to really balance it out. So Kane doesn't just have the Son option when he drops deep. And yeah, he's got Harry Kane continuing his what we saw under Jose Mourinho in dropping deep, trying to make him into this quarterback, really utilising, as Stu said earlier on, when we're talking about Sebastian Haller, not like there was nothing wrong with Harry Kane's game, but when the manager and the coach sees that you can do something else and really stretch the limits and the possibilities of this team, then yeah, you've got to give credit to Conte for that and giving them a solid base to build from as well. And Paratici, he deserves some credit for the signing of Christian Romero too. Top player. It's
going to be interesting. I've seen on Sky Sports News that Conte has hinted that he's already going to be staying next season. Obviously, it'd be hard for him to turn it away, and I do think that means Kane will probably stay as well with Spurs. So things looking up for Spurs, and we're going to kick on to the last three teams now. And then we're going to start kind of just delving in a small bit into what we think next season is going to look like. Then we're going to go through our team this season, blah, blah, blah. And then we'll get it finished, hopefully, in the next 15 minutes. Chelsea, we'll keep this short and sweet still. Just one of those seasons where it was just kind of, they got into the top four early, stayed there, probably focused a little bit too much on the cup competitions. They got deep in both domestic cup competitions, took the eye off the ball in the league, nearly kind of threw it away towards the end as well. In terms, obviously, they had a lot of off the field problems, especially towards the end of the season. That's all been cleared up over the last couple of days with the takeover being confirmed. I suppose, isn't it? It's hard to kind of delve. It's been a poor season from Chelsea if you look at it that way. They've lost both finals on penalties, which literally it could have been a flip of a coin. Finishing third, listen, it's not to be snuffed at. But in terms of Chelsea as a club, coming off the Champions League win the last year, the Club World Champions, all that, it is a disappointing season for them. But there is light at the end of the tunnel, isn't there?
Well, yeah, look, they've got a good manager. The problem is they brought in Lukaku, and that was a massive issue for them because he's not as mobile as you need to be, as you need him to be. He's a good player, and he's obviously got a role in any squad. He's a big, powerful player. But he upset, in my humble opinion, he upset Chelsea's flow. And once you upset the flow of any football team, particularly Chelsea, it was always going to be a problem for them. The player that really kind of found his form was Werner and Havertz to an extent, but mainly Werner. Werner's a very, very dangerous footballer. So for me, I thought it was just a bit strange that they started to play with a target man rather than utilise their nippy wingers that they've got, including Pulisic, as well as Havertz, who's got pace, and Werner. I think that was their biggest problem. They got into top 4. I think you're right. I think they did focus on certain things, but to see them fall off a cliff like they did was unbelievable. And when you've got a midfield of Conte, Kovacic, and Jorginho, Rudiger at the back, it's unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. And they've got a great keeper in Mendy. And so I was really, really surprised. But look, they've got their bell hook and by crook. I think there'll be a different proposition next season. But that's really all
I think people forget. I think people forget that Chelsea, the amount of games Chelsea played last year, they actually played one less game than Liverpool. That was only because Liverpool are going to be in the Champions League final. So listen, the players are going to be leggy. The squad rotation was there as well. They got the 2 finals, both going to extra time as well towards the end of the season. The players are just probably knackered. This is the first summer where players are actually going to get a proper rest in a long time. You have to remember that as well.
Yeah, it's interesting to say that, and I have this debate with people about all the time about players being tired, and they are tired. Look, they're not machines, etc., like that. And we all know that Liverpool and Man City have got the most asthmatic players in the league. Everyone knows that. But,
No.
But what I would say is though, and I'll keep coming back to it. It's about the individual footballer himself to keep himself fit, to keep himself. He will know his own body. He will know when he's tired. And sometimes you've got to be brave and go to the manager. Look, I've got about 70% of the game in me today. Start me, and I will give you that 100% in that 70%. But come 80 minutes or 75 minutes, just take me off. And you've got to be honest with yourself. And always try to look after myself. Always try to look after myself. And I don't think modern day footballers do, because they go home and the missus want to go out Gucci shopping and all this kind of thing. They've got to sort themselves out, these footballers.
Yeah.
And it's a big issue. So
it's one of those as well. Like in the middle of it, you have to remember, like when come around Christmas time as well, there was a lot of COVID and a lot of Premier League squads as well. A lot of players, Chelsea were affected by that as well. So it was just one of those. I think a lot of players will be very, very glad of this rest. I mean, a lot of players the international players are going straight to England camp now next week, which is going to be just mental as well. They need their even if it's only 2 or 3 weeks where they just do not train, nothing, like just give them a break.
Yeah, so Southgate's problem was he has left a couple of players out, hasn't he, such as the Liverpool players, etc. What he should have done is utilise the under-21s.
Yeah.
And
but they have their own championships coming up, so they have to focus on that as well. That's the problem.
Yeah, I know. But it's a bit of a shame. Like Nations League for me, it's just a waste of time. Who cares?
Well, try being an Ireland fan, man. Listen.
I'm sorry.
But listen, we're going to group the 2 Man City and Liverpool together, and just I think take the bias out of it. Obviously, Liverpool and Stu, you're kind of battling both fronts with Man City and Liverpool being your enemies, but you have to just take your hat off to both teams. What a season for the both of them in terms of the league, for Liverpool as well, outside domestic cups, being a Champions League final tomorrow as well. All joking aside, they have to be probably 2 of the best Premier League teams we've probably ever seen, Tariq. And in fairness to Liverpool, I'd say Liverpool are just cursing the fact that Man City are actually around, because they probably have 6 or 7 Premier Leagues at this stage.
100%, man. And that's a big. It's nice to hear you say that, because this is something I've been arguing with my brother-in-law Ed about. I do think they are the 2 greatest teams in the Premier League, and it's kind of mad to say, because with Manchester United, you give credit to them for how much they won. But when you're looking at a points perspective, and you've got to take into consideration the league is more competitive now, come on, people. Like, it's ridiculous what they're doing and fighting on all fronts. Liverpool, like 15 minutes away from potentially winning a quadruple last weekend. Do you know what I'm saying? And they've still got to play this weekend, of course, and no counted out Real Madrid. But it's just ridiculous the levels that these teams are putting at. And when it was back in the day, my early days, I don't really have great memory, Stu, because I'm 23. So I've done my
the early days for Tariq was about 10 years ago.
yeah, seriously. But after doing my history, learning doing my education, looking at Arsenal, Man United, and the levels we took the Premier League to at the top, there was a lot more fight, and there's a bit of bitterness in between those two as well, which is what I think's lacking between these two, but. The levels is different. Like, I know it's a different era-ish, but come on. Yeah, I agree with you, Matt. What they're doing on a consistent basis with the squads, the players that they're using, and not even just pure caliber of players. Like even Manchester City, they're doing it with the likes of Zinchenko in at left back, who I don't particularly rate highly, and Liverpool, 37-year-old, James Milner now, and Jordan Henderson taking his game to a level where he's functioning well. Once again, keeping the game simple.
James Milner still doing bits at what, 37 is he?
Yeah, that's quite an interesting observation about Milner.
Is he asthmatic as well? Is he?
Probably.
Right,
about Jordan Henderson. Look, I wouldn't disagree with what Tariq says actually, because it pains me to say it, but it was a completely different era back in '99. Virgil van Dijk was coming up against Reid van Nistelrooy. It'd be a completely different game because Reid van Nistelrooy.
I disagree in a way. The reason I disagree, Stu, is because I think it's harder to be a centre back now because you don't have a focal point to try.
It is harder. Yeah, it is harder. Yeah,
that's why I think it's a little bit different. Like I was having this conversation with Ed because Rich brought this point from Eagle Eye Football, and he was saying the reason with Virgil van Dijk is because he doesn't have those, the Drogbas and whatnot. But that's simple now. That's simplistic in terms of how to defend. Is you have two centre backs to mark one striker. If you're playing a two, one marks one and the other. Like I'd back Virgil van Dijk physically. And to read the game against any striker in the world, in all honesty. So that's why I think it's, the fluid front threes and the 5 players in attack for City. It's hard for Van Dijk. And then also the high lines that they're playing with, you know what I mean?
No, I would agree with that. I mean, there's two types of centre halves. There's a fighter and there's not. And I was a centre half as well. I used to like a scuffle. I used to absolutely love a scuffle.
And then I was the other one. There you go. We would work together, Steve.
I love a scuffle. First time opportunity I got, bang. I love it. Absolutely love it. And but I was playing against centre forwards who were like that. They want to battle back. They wanted to fight. And that's why Maguire's really, really good. He's good when he's in a one-on-one battle. He's not great when somebody's running at him. He's not great when somebody's in behind him. Van Dijk offers a bit of both. You're absolutely right. He's good in a one-on-one battle. He's also good in and around when players are around him. I use Reid van Nistelrooy, though, because he's an exceptionally cute centre-forward. He was a big, tall, strong, gangly kind of player, but very, very cute with his positional play. And more often than not, Van Dijk would be looking over his shoulder and he'd be like, okay, how's Reid van Nistelrooy got behind me? That type of thing. But the modern day game, it lacks aggression. And I think if you could get it, and I've always said this, you can get at teams like Liverpool, you can get at teams like City, but Liverpool are a bit more cuter about how they go about their game. City are very, very quick with their passing. They'll mesmerise you with their passing. But Andy Robertson and Trent, they've got a bit of rogueness about them. Robertson will stand on your ankle, no problem, just wink at you and walk past. And I love stuff like that. Whereas Man City won't. Kyle Walker won't do that. Kyle Walker bangs on his pace. Diaz won't do it. Diaz looks at his positional play. The difference between the two is Alisson Becker, as opposed to I can't remember his name. Edison. I think Becker's a better overall all-round goalkeeper area-wise. I think Edison's better with his feet, but he doesn't command his box anywhere near as good as Alisson does. So I think they're quite evenly matched. I tend to agree with that.
Yeah.
I would like to see a team actually stand up and box them for 90 minutes as well. We did that with Arsenal once. Matt.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
You go to Old Trafford. You're on a 49-game winning streak or 48.
Mike Riley,
and we battered.
Kicked
Reyes.
us off the park. Yeah,
we
you should have got a few cents.
Yeah, we should have. Oh God, yeah. you know, and there are some times, and I tell my lad this all the times, he's a dainty left footer, which how I produced a dainty left footer.
You're not my son.
Yeah, he's a dainty left footer, and I always say to him that when you go into a game, there will be a time where somebody will forget football. Well, what are you on about, Dad? I said he'll forget about playing football. He will smash you, okay, for 90 minutes. How do you know all this? Because I've done it myself. And I'll just one quick story, and then I'll shut up. But we was playing a seven-a-side tournament, and we got into the first round. We were playing Chester University, really good standard, bunch of old boys against them. And I couldn't get to grips with this one lad. Just couldn't get to grips with it all game. They beat us 5-1, and he scored 4 goals. And I'm trudging off, and I'm fucking fuming with myself. And the lads are sitting there giving me shit. We played them in the semi-final. And I chucked everything out the window and I kicked him for 25 minutes. All game, just kicked him. That's all I did. Every time I got the ball, I'd lay it off and then I'd go and kick him again. And he came to me at the end of the game. He said, you want to learn how to play football, mate? I said, one quick question. He said, what? I said, how many did you score this time?
Yeah, exactly.
There you go, son. Tapped him on the head and I walked off. And
that's old school. You can tell he's 30 years older than us.
Yeah. And my, you know, our current players, our modern day players, won't adapt, and sometimes you just got to adapt. That's the moral of my story.
But I think the modern day centre halves are ball playing, nearly a bit of flair involved in it. Whereas even 15 years ago, centre halves were there to break up play, tackle, and get rid of the ball. Give it to the wingers, give it to the fullbacks, and that was their job done. Now it's a lot more than that. They're nearly centre midfielders, some of them nowadays. Yeah. But listen, we can't say much more about Man City and Liverpool. They've been unreal, and it's the fact that the title race, the Champions League race, Europa League race, the relegation battle went all the way down to the final day is unbelievable. A bit of a coincidence, but it's unbelievable. But listen, I'll come to you guys. Bit of a quick fire one now, and maybe give your answer and maybe 2 or 3 sentences as to why. Tariq, I'll come to you first. Your team of the season and why.
What, just Premier League team of the season?
Premier League team of the season, yeah.
Oh, across the whole season, that's difficult. I'm going to go with... you got to go with Crystal Palace. I'm going to go with them.
Right, go on. Give us your reasons why.
Massive transition. They're really good to watch now. Going forward, they've got some star quality in there to come. Like your Eze, we haven't seen much this season, and I'm not saying this because of the Eagle Eye football.
There's a tenner, Rich.
Exactly. Yeah. Thanks. But I really like some of the individuals they haven't. We haven't even seen a lot from this season. Your Edwards and Eze's. Gallagher has been fantastic. Elise, what a player, what a signing that is. And then Mark Gay and Tyrick Mitchell coming into the England side. Tyrick Mitchell, arguably one of the best left backs in the league this season. Mark Gay, a 20-year-old captain at centre back. I talk about this a lot with centre backs, and Stu, I wonder if you agree with me. I'm 23. I haven't played in about a year, at a decent level, but I know with centre backs, your game peaks in your mid to late 20s, 26, 27s.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Seeing Mark Gay do this at a very young age with the maturity on and off the pitch is ridiculous at a Premier League level. So the sky's the limit for him. And, it's just been nice to see Patrick Vieira as well. Someone who's been very underrated. And from an own personal point of view, a black manager. Do you know what I mean? Because there's not many out there. So, and even when he did come into the league, a lot of people were like, nah, not, he's going to struggle. He wasn't doing great at Nice. He managed in MLS, completely different. And transitioning that side, I've got to give it to Crystal Palace in that way.
He kicks who he wants, doesn't he, Vieira? He kicks who he wants.
That's right.
Listen, my team of the season is going to be Everton because we beat Crystal Palace. So it must be. No, Stu, give us your team of the season and why.
I'm going to go Brighton, only because I echo, by the way, what you guys said about Potter. I just think what a manager. What I like about him, he's very, very astute. He's very methodical. And you're right. And I like that you joked about, look, we've been winning since I had the beard, so I'm not going to shave the beard. I love stuff like that. It's a little bit of fun because he doesn't come across as fun, does he? He comes across as a 70s kind of guy, wearing flares and a big wide kipper tie, that type of thing. But he's a lovely guy. But my God, does he know how to manage a football team?
Do you remember what he said, Stu? Remember what he said about, I think it was when Brighton started to lose a couple of games early on in the season, and they were getting, I think, no, it wasn't even losing games, they were drawing games 0-0 at home. They should have been winning, and there was a few boos going round at home, and he went straight in and gave an interview and said, I think the Brighton fans need a bit of a history lesson, and walked off.
Yeah, exactly.
For a manager of the team to say something like that on national television about his own fans,
cojones, you see.
Yeah,
and then back it up. Then that was fairness to him,
and he has backed it up, and he's produced like Cucurella, for example. I mean, you look at him and you think, if I was playing against, I'd be pulling your hair all the time, or get it in a ponytail, mate. As you're walking past him and all that kind of stuff. What's a player though? Excellent delivery. He's fit. He's quick. He's not the best defender, but it doesn't matter the way they play. They're such a unit. And Brighton are one of those teams that actually attack in a pendulum formation and defend in a pendulum formation. And what I mean by that is they go up together and they come back together. Yeah. And you can imagine him in a gym getting some classical music and saying, "No, it's step together, back together, back together." And do you know what? And that's how you learn the basics of defending in a unit and a cohesive unit, which is what you were talking about, Tarek, actually, when you were talking about Brighton. So I just thought they were absolutely fabulous. I mean, they battered us.
They battered us as well without getting the result. Yeah,
just to pieces.
Didn't batter Everton.
I was looking at it and thinking, I can't pick any holes in why they batter. You've got to, you've got to hand it to what Graham Potter's done, and I really hope he gets a few quid in the summer. He keeps that team together. He wants to say to Cucurella, mate, forget going to City. You want to stay here. Develop with me. Let me develop you. Lewis Dunk, he's not a name that anybody really, but he's a goal scorer in centre half. He's a solid centre half. They're just a great team. I'm really, really impressed.
So would I be right in saying the next question was manager of the season? Would I be right in saying you're probably swaying towards Graham Potter being manager of the season rather than Brighton being your team of the season?
Yeah, all day long for me. I know everyone turns around and says, it's got to be Klopp, it's got to be Guardiola. No, I don't think so. I think it's either Potter or Vieira, and I'm with you on Vieira. I'm with you on Palace. I was touch and go, really, that those two. And I'll tell you one thing, Manchester United's player of the year, everyone went Ronaldo, blah, blah, blah. I would have done it for Mata. It doesn't matter whether you play one game or 38 games, you manage 2 games or 38 games. It's what you do. It's how you affect the team and the players around you. That's what cuts you above the rest. So that's why I just think it's tight for me, and I wouldn't go against Vieira because you've also got to look at what they're dealing with. Yeah, and
that's the point. That's the point I was going to make as well. Okay, so Klopp winning Premier League manager season, I completely disagree with, and that's not me being having my Everton goggles on or anything like that, right? At the end of the day, like you say, Stu, the circumstances, right? He has world-class players in a squad. Salah, Mane, Van Dijk, best goalkeeper, best centre-half. He had the best right winger in world football, possibly the best player in world football at the end of the day. And in terms of Premier League manager, he came second. So now that might sound very spiteful, okay? But then, like you say, you're looking at circumstances. Thomas Frank at Brentford brought a team up. Their whole squad is 250 grand a week in wage. The whole squad.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what you have to look at. Like in terms of management there, David Moyes at West Ham, Vieira with Palace. The circumstances are completely different. So in terms of what Thomas Frank did with Brentford in terms of keeping that team in the Premier League, is that a bigger achievement than Jurgen Klopp coming second? That's what you have to ask yourself.
And that's how I look at it. It's exactly how I look at it. So, and that's why I'm going for Potter.
So Tariq, who's your manager of the season?
Stu, I love Potter. I'll let you have that. Totally. But I'm going to go the other way, where I was disagreeing with Moss earlier. It's got to be Eddie Howe, surely, because when we talk about
it's a good shout again.
Do you know when we talk about Pep and Klopp, Stu? We say we need to talk about manager of the season. That's the title.
Yeah.
As you said, Matt, Klopp's got world-class players. Pep's got world-class players. They've got the best bunch of players. Yes, credit to them overall, but not this season. Do you know what, for that? But when you look into the situation that Eddie Howe has come into, no side has ever survived after going 14 games without a win.
That is true. That is very true. Yeah.
And you look at how high he has taken them. You've got to go with Eddie Howe for that point, really. And you know what? Like, I love Graham Potter. Once again, though, this season, fantastic. I back that shout, but he's had a few more years to develop.
He has,
Whereas Eddie Howe had to have an instant impact. And he has. And like when I was mentioning earlier, to the sides that with players that weren't signed in January transfer window, improving them massively. So
good Eddie has a good shot. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, my manager season's Frank Lampard for obvious reasons. But we'll move on. But listen, we'll move on. So I have a little bit of a question as well. Listen, real quickly, you don't need to give a reason for a player of the season for you, Tariq.
Player. Oh, this is difficult. Can you go Shu first whilst I think?
Well,
Shu, you go ahead first then, Shu, yeah.
It's difficult, isn't it, this one?
It's a tough one. It is a tough one. For me, I'll tell you why, and people are they're not gonna be happy with me about it as well. But I suppose you've got to put Ronaldo up there, and I'll tell you why you've got to put him up there. It's not his goals, it's the caliber of team that he's managed to come third in the Golden Boots is phenomenal for a 38-year-old. And so I would go with that. I know I said about Mata being player of the year, but that's for United, it's a different reason for it. For the whole Premier League, I think you've got to go. It's a phenomenal achievement. It really is. Closely followed, though, and this is going to surprise you, by Ødegaard. I think he's been absolutely.
Moss is already in love with you, by the way, Stu. Moss Ødegaard is his favourite player. I'm telling you, he's going to love you more than me. No,
I think when he was given the skipper's armband, he's matured as a player. I just think he's a great player. So I've liked him this year. You know, you've got Saka. I like Smith Rowe. I could name 3 or 4 good Arsenal players I like. But for me, Ronaldo, only purely based on that one fact. I'm not going to go Kevin De Bruyne. I'm not going to go Mo Salah. Yeah. Too obvious. Well,
my player of the season would have been Son. Just for the sake that I think he actually deserved to win it.
Yeah, good call.
I think he deserved to win it, to be honest with you, overall as well, because he was just consistent for the whole year. I think, to be honest with you, when Kane wasn't really playing, he was the one that helped keep Spurs afloat as well. So I think Son for me. Tariq, do you have one in your head there before we move on?
What? It's controversial, like in this panel, but I also think it's
Richarlison, yeah, good man, yeah.
I love that. Like, that killed me. Do you know? In a way, I'll give credit, and this kind of links with Richarlison in a way, because Richarlison had a massive impact on you as a club, getting you out. Like, you don't get out of that relegation, but you're relegated without Richarlison.
No, he's the reason why we're staying up here.
Exactly, and I will say Kevin De Bruyne, because he carried Man City. I know it's the obvious one, but my reason's probably a little bit different to others. In big games, he was the difference that separated them. Chelsea, I think of, like Manchester United, he was amazing in that one. Even though City were class at the home one, it was really Kevin De Bruyne that kind of won him that game. Liverpool picking up the draw in that one, he was outstanding, man of the match. And it was that second half of the season. And the reason why it's so difficult to say, and I understand where Stu's coming from by putting Ronaldo, because there's always each player that's in there has had a dip at a certain point. Ronaldo went 10 games without a goal.
Terrible.
Son went on a long stretch without scoring 2. And then Kevin De Bruyne wasn't really doing anything in the first half of the season.
Absolutely,
Salah was anonymous for the second half. So it's this one. There's usually like an outright player, but I'm glad
by Bobby.
Someone different. Yeah,
Bobby, the outside shout, young player of the year for me. But listen, one word answers, okay? Because we're going to wrap this up because we're listening an hour and 30 minutes into this now, right? No, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. Okay. Surprise of the season. We'll just do teams, good and bad. So who was your surprise of the season that were like, oh, they actually did really well? And then who was your like, okay, listen, we'll just all agree that Everton were the bad surprise of the season. Who was your good surprise of the season then? Stu, go to you.
Palace, I agree. Palace 100%, and Everton. Yeah, Everton. Unfortunately, is a no-brainer pick. I'm sorry to say.
I think we're all going to agree with that one. I think. Are we, Tariq? You Everton for the bad surprise?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because and the good surprise. Oh man,
good surprise of the season. Yeah,
I'm gonna go West Ham. I didn't think they'd be able to do it in 2 seasons in a row. In all honesty, nice. So I'll go West Ham with a good surprise.
I'll go Brentford because I just didn't think they were going to basically. Well, they finished. I think they finished 14th in the end. And the fact that they, like you say, they went on. I think they lost 8 or 9 games in a row before Eriksen came in. So that was relegation territory as well. Like so, Eriksen coming in was unbelievable. Right, we're going to dedicate the last 5 minutes to this Mickey Mouse game that's happening tomorrow night. Champions League final, Liverpool against Real Madrid in Paris. Let's try and be as unbiased as possible. But yeah, Real Madrid tomorrow. Yeah.
Let me clear this. Up. I'm going to clear this up, and I'm going to just refer you to the Champions League final a couple of seasons ago when Mo Salah went off crying. Shoulder. Real Madrid are a proper football team, and they're a proper football team for this reason. Zidane walks into that changing room. This is hypathy, and he says, "Right, Mo Salah is the most dangerous footballer. What are we going to do with him?" So
break him up.
Puts his hand up and says, "Boss, leave him to me." Puts his hand down, and they forget about Salah just like that, because that's what a true football team does. And they took him out. He took his one chance. He took him out. He did the old, "I'll grab your arm, and then I'm going to fall on you like I've just tripped." Mo Salah goes off. The game's over. I wouldn't put it past if Real Madrid don't do something very, very cheeky, very, very similar to disrupt Liverpool, because the best teams disrupt the opposition, and you do it the best way that you can. Real Madrid 2-1.
Oh, but I don't think Real Madrid have to worry about Salah this time around. I wouldn't even be surprised if Jurgen Klopp doesn't start him. To be honest with you, I think they
specific Salah. I'm saying just something.
Oh, in general, yeah.
As that, because everyone was saying, "Oh, Ramos, you dirty bastard." I was laughing my head off because that's exactly what.
There's the old school three coming out in that man there, yeah.
And then I'm amazed because I don't think Pepe was playing. Because if Pepe was playing, he'd have come and kicked Salah in the head while he was down. That's proper football, and that's what I would have done. But I wouldn't put it past them if they do something very, very similar to disrupt their flow. As long as you can disrupt Liverpool's flow,
yeah.
And you've got Benzema on that pitch, and you've got Vinicius, and you've got the crooner Toni Kroos, you've got Modric and Casemiro. You've got a great, great chance of winning 2-1.
Tariq, I think we were all very surprised when Carlo Ancelotti decided to take a step down and go and manage, leave Everton and go to Real Madrid. But listen, he's done very well. He's won. He won the league, which I actually didn't realise that he hadn't won the Spanish league yet. It was the only one that he was missing out of the top 5.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So it was the first time. So he's what does he have? He has the English, the German, the French, the Italian, and he was missing the Spanish. And he actually came out in an interview, and I listened. He can turn around and say what he wants, I suppose. But he did say the only team that I was going to leave Everton for was Real Madrid, which is a mad sentence to even say.
I don't think he said that.
Well, no, he did. He said it. He did say it. But no, in fairness, the one thing that I think is in Real Madrid's favour is Real Madrid won the league about 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
and they haven't had any Copa del Rey games. They haven't had any. That now it could go against them as well.
That's what I was going to say.
I see you were swinging there, waiting to come at me there. Like you're like, I knew it could go because they're not in that kind of flow, whereas Liverpool have been. But
true.
We'll see how it goes because Liverpool could be very leggy. Listen, last game of the season, players are going to be up for it. The inhalers will be flying around the dressing room at half time.
You two are killing me, man.
But listen, no, honest to God, Tariq, how do you see that game going tomorrow night? We'll finish on this.
You know what? For devil's advocate, I've just got to go with Liverpool, and I do believe it in a way. I'm sorry, Shum. I'm sorry, Matt. With Liverpool though, like they are a relentless machine. Them in finals with Klopp. You remember at the early point when he was like, "Oh, Klopp can't win a final, etc., etc." But now look at them. That you don't even have to win the game in 90 minutes. It's just making sure you can manage the game through. This is the biggest test for them in a one game for me. Because when you think of Trent Alexander-Arnold, who I highly rate, him up against Vinicius Jr., he's gonna really be tested going that way.
That is, yeah, fantastic.
It's a battle. Van Dijk against Benzema. We've spoken about Van Nistelrooy. Benzema is a proper old school, and everything number 9, an old school modern number 9 in both ways. And he's going to be that focal point who Van Dijk's going to have to work with. That midfield, I'm sorry, Real Madrid's midfield is technically better, but we know that's not how Jurgen Klopp wants his midfielders to play.
Exactly, yeah.
I think it might come down, sorry to cut you off, I think it might come down to one of those where if it was over 2 legs, you'd probably say Liverpool have the better chance. If it was over 1 leg, I'd say, sorry, all the way around, sorry. If it was over 2 legs, you'd fancy Real Madrid. Over 1 leg, you'd probably say Liverpool. What do you think?
Yeah, but Tariq was right because he turned around and said you don't have to win it in 90 minutes. And it's a really good analysis, that, because he's absolutely right. You know, I go in, you know, you're sitting in the change room, the gaffer's coming in, he's saying about this. And if you hear you don't have to win it in 90 minutes, it calms you down immediately. Immediately you get calm because you know you've got that potential 30 minutes. You don't want to go to penalties. You at all costs, you don't want that lottery.
Well, they've done it twice already.
Yeah, you don't want that lottery. But what you've got to do with Liverpool, you've got to stop Andy Robertson, you've got to stop TAA. So it's either Mendy or Carvalhal. Now Carvalhal is likely to put Robertson in row Z. And, you know, he's an old school player, isn't he? Mendy, which I only found out the other day, he's the cousin of the Chelsea keeper, isn't he? I only found that out the other day. I was like, purely by that. I think he's a great player. He's a bit gangly, you know, when he can turn himself on an absolute sixpence, can't he? But he always comes away with the ball. So that is a fascinating battle on both. And you're absolutely right, going forward, that's Vinicius Jr. against Trent, because I think Vinicius will absolutely destroy Trent defensively. But it's whether or not he's willing to work back and help Mendy at the back. And with regards to the middle, there's just that. Technically, they're better, but they're just not as mobile. The Kroener's nowhere near as mobile. Modric isn't anywhere near as mobile. Casemiro, he's got a booking in him all the time, hasn't he? Providing Fabinho if he plays, and Robert and Henderson, by the way,
Thiago as well.
Can stay calm. There's no Thiago, is there? So I don't know what they'll do.
They're both back in training. Klopp confirmed today, so it's legit to be touch and go. Yeah.
Now that's for me. Again, this is just I'm on that page. Target Thiago. Get at him. Let's see what he's got. Yeah, I want to see what he's got. Is it his ankle? Whatever it was.
It's true.
Just hit him. I want to see what he's got, because if you can remove him, get him out of the equation, brilliant. Because Henderson isn't going to hurt you anywhere near as much as what Thiago is. This is just basics of football dressing rooms, isn't it? You know, so that's what I'd be looking to do. Anyway.
And you know, with the forward line, let me just finish up on this. They are aggressive in how they attack. As you said, they're the opposite to City. City are very intricate, clever. They'll break you down in death by 1,000 passes. City will. Whereas Liverpool, relentless. Luis Diaz. Yeah. Sadio Mane, Mo Salah, it might not work, but they will tire you out physically and mentally by how they will keep attacking you. And that's going to be an interesting thing for them to manage in Real Madrid, because you don't get that in the Spanish league. You don't get that in La Liga. That's why anyone with a little bit of pace, Bamiyang, is going out there and smashing it up and ripping it to bits.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's different over there, and it's gonna be an interesting battle. I'm gonna back Liverpool. I haven't given my prediction yet, though. Do I have to? I haven't given mine to Mike.
I just think, you don't have to treat. You're going to go. You're siding with Liverpool, but I actually hope it is finished in 90 minutes, and I hope it's a game where it's like 3-2 either way, where we get a feast of football in 90 minutes. Two teams going at it. The last thing you want is, like you say, you don't have to win it in 90 minutes and sitting back 0-0. Let's get the extra time, that type of thing. You know what I mean? I hope we get a good game of football at the end of it all, and then we can just switch off a football brains for a couple of weeks and then watch Ireland play Ukraine in the Aviva Stadium, I suppose. But lads, yeah, you're not switching off. But lads, listen, hour and 45 minutes. Tariq, thank you so much for jumping in last minute. I know you were running around after your nephew and Alton Towers all afternoon today. So listen, really, really appreciate you. Still, the football knowledge I've had to receiving into my brain in the last hour and 45 minutes, I have a headache.
Sorry,
I actually have a headache, right? No, between the two of you, lads, the reason why I asked Tariq on as well, I was trying to get Rich on as well, was the football knowledge that you can get as well when we're having this type of discussion as well. And the amount of stuff that we've covered over the last hour and 45 minutes as well, we've literally touched on every team in the Premier League and the Champions League tomorrow as well.
Can I just say, this is a big thing for me. Like the age difference between us all. Like Matt, what, you in your early 30s? Stu, you
30 bang on, yeah.
You're 52. I'm in my early 20s. And this kind of dispels the prejudice and the people think. Oh, Stu, you don't know about the modern game now. You don't understand, because you are, as you said, you are a old fashioned, you're old school, but you've got very much an understanding and coaching. Matt asking brilliant questions and then also adding in, just facilitating a great footballing conversation, man. And I think this has been a great show tonight. And guys in the chat, I hope you've enjoyed it because I certainly have.
Yeah, the chat was wild. So fair play to the chat.
I've just been accused of playing Sunday League style football. I can't believe it. I retired just quickly. I retired at Bewdley Town away.
Oh yeah.
When I was 47 in the West Mids Prem. That was my final game.
Fair play,
man. No, but listen, guys, Stu, I'll come to you, Stu. Stu, where can we find you on Twitter and all that kind of stuff? Shout out to the guys.
Yeah, at Stu Woolley. Feel free to follow me. I'm pretty boring on Twitter, by the way, guys. But thanks for tonight.
You can find Stu on this channel as well with me as well. We'll probably be taking a few weeks hiatus before we come back with any sort of transfer specials and stuff like that. But Tariq, give us a shout out. Obviously, like your channel is flying at the moment as well, and your brother-in-law Edmund there as well, giving you a dig out in the background as well. So where can we find you?
Yeah, Tariq Talks, people, all over YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch as well now. So yeah, definitely talking football. It's a pleasure to meet you, Stu. Thank you for having me on, Matt.
You
and
too,
Moss, if you and Stu was at centre back, you're walking red cards. Stu, you and Stu would need me to, be your good guy back. Good cop, bad cop. Yeah, Stu's the bad cop. I'll be the good cop.
I am a walking red card.
You can't have two of them together. The best balance is when you have difference. So there you go.
Be like Tariq and Moss and Stu will be like Tony Adams and Martin Keown put together, wouldn't it?
Exactly that. Yeah.
Well, listen, guys, you can find me. Obviously, there's my ad there, Smitty too, on Twitter. Obviously, I'm hosting the Talk of the League as well on the Weekly Armchair Sports Talk as well. You find me on Tariq's channel the odd time as well. You find me on Eagle Eye Football as well. Just throwing my ridiculous Lampard agenda at everybody. But listen, guys, thank you so much, Tariq. Really appreciate it. Everybody in the chat. Stu, as always, thank you so much. And let's enjoy tomorrow night's game. And then we all deserve maybe a couple of days rest. I don't know about you, Tariq. You're probably going to be still rallying through a few videos over the next few weeks, are you?
I'll try.
Good man. Guys, on this channel as well, on the Weekly Armchair, obviously the guys are doing the wrestling podcast as well. I think it's on the Thursday. The NBA playoffs obviously are in the final stages. Rachel and Greg do that as well. I believe they do that on a Friday, Dimes and Buckets. Make sure you check that channel out as well. And just like and subscribe to the channel, guys. Really appreciate everybody being here. And thanks again, guys, and we'll see you all soon. Cheers.
Thank you.
Peace.